Zimbabwe is a nation haunted by its past. For decades, the Zimbabwe African National Union Patriotic Front, or ZANU-PF, has held an iron grip on power. This dominance, born from the fight for independence, has morphed into an almost pathological fear of losing control. The military, a powerful force in Zimbabwean politics, has become deeply intertwined with ZANU-PF. This alliance, forged in the fires of liberation, now casts a long shadow over the nation's future. The spectre of military coups hangs heavy in the air. Zimbabwe's history is scarred by such events, brutal reminders of the military's willingness to seize power. This history fuels a climate of fear and suspicion within ZANU-PF. It has bred a culture of paranoia where whispers of dissent are met with swift and brutal repression. The relationship between ZANU-PF and the military is complex and often opaque. Some see the military as a guarantor of stability, a force that maintains order in a volatile political landscape. Others view it as a threat to democracy, a tool of repression wielded by a paranoid regime. Regardless of perspective, one thing is clear. The military's influence on Zimbabwean politics is undeniable. This influence raises profound questions about the future of democracy in Zimbabwe. Can a nation truly be free when the military holds such sway over its political life? Emerson Mnangagwa, once a trusted lieutenant of Robert Mugabe, now finds himself the target of the very same forces that propelled him to power. Accusations of coup plots and poisoning swirl around him, painting a picture of a regime riven by paranoia and mistrust. Mnangagwa, known as the crocodile for his ruthlessness, is no stranger to the dark arts of political survival. He rose to prominence through ZANU-PF, a party notorious for its brutality and intolerance of dissent, but even crocodiles are vulnerable. The alleged coup plots, whispered in hushed tones and shrouded in secrecy, speak to the fragility of Mnangagwa's grip on power. They suggest that those who helped him topple Mugabe are now turning on him, their loyalty eroding amidst the chaos and economic ruin that gripped the nation. Adding fuel to the fire are rumors of poisonings within the upper echelons of power. High-ranking military officials, once staunch allies of Mnangagwa, have fallen ill under mysterious circumstances. These incidents, whether real or imagined, serve to further deepen the atmosphere of paranoia and suspicion that permeates Zimbabwean politics. Zimbabwe's once promising economy lies in ruins, a casualty of decades of mismanagement, corruption, and hyperinflation. The Zimbabwean dollar, once a symbol of national pride, has been decimated by hyperinflation. Ordinary citizens struggle to afford basic necessities, their life savings wiped out by the economic collapse. The economic crisis has fueled widespread discontent, pushing the nation to the brink of collapse. The most affected are the poor and the vulnerable, who bear the brunt of the government's economic incompetence. But even the middle class, once a pillar of stability, finds itself struggling to survive. This economic turmoil has created fertile ground for unrest. As the situation deteriorates, the potential for mass protests and even violent uprisings grows. The government, already deeply paranoid, has responded with increased repression, further fueling the cycle of violence and despair. The economic crisis is not merely a matter of numbers on a balance sheet. It is a human tragedy of immense proportions, one that threatens to tear the nation apart. The longer it continues, the greater the risk of a complete societal collapse. Section 4. The Iron Fist tightens, human rights under siege. As the political and economic situation in Zimbabwe deteriorates, the government has responded with predictable brutality. Human rights are routinely violated, dissent is crushed with an iron fist, and the rule of law has become a distant memory. The crackdown on opposition parties, civil society organizations, and activists has intensified. Peaceful protests are met with violence, arbitrary arrests are commonplace, and torture is used with impunity. The government, terrified of losing its grip on power, has resorted to the only tactics it knows: fear and intimidation. Journalists and human rights defenders are particularly vulnerable, targeted for daring to speak truth to power. Many have been forced into hiding or exile, their voices silenced by the threat of violence. The space for free and independent media has shrunk dramatically, replaced by a climate of self-censorship and fear. The government's actions have drawn international condemnation. but such pronouncements have done little to deter the regime's repressive instincts. The international community must move beyond words and take concrete action to hold the perpetrators of these abuses accountable and protect the fundamental rights of the Zimbabwean people. Section 5. A world watching international response and potential outcomes. The world watches Zimbabwe with a mixture of concern and frustration. The international community has condemned the human rights abuses, called for an end to the political repression, and urged the government to address the economic crisis. But these pleas have largely gone unheeded. The Southern African Development Community, a regional bloc of which Zimbabwe is a member, has been criticized for its muted response to the crisis. Some have accused SADC of being too lenient with the Zimbabwean government, unwilling to take the necessary steps to hold it accountable. The potential outcomes for Zimbabwe remain uncertain. The country stands at a crossroads, facing a stark choice between continued repression and a path toward democracy and respect for human rights. The path chosen will have profound consequences for the people of Zimbabwe and the region as a whole. The international community has a moral obligation to stand with the people of Zimbabwe in their struggle for freedom and dignity. This means using all available diplomatic and economic tools to pressure the government to change course. It also means providing support to civil society organizations and human rights defenders working tirelessly to bring about a better future for their country.